What's up guys, check in here, America Inc. from the Cloudy server, and I totally just said that for Hugh's sake, so don't mind me. In today's video we're gonna be looking at Shakme, hero number 99, who was just released a little bit before the anniversary of King's Raid and came right away with a nice little controversy. Before we get to him, a big shout out to Yon, who held a lot with testing, discussion and provided valuable insights, so big cheers for that. Thank you, brah. You were awesome. Now let's see Shakme. First of all, the controversy about him: he was released with a pretty broken S3 skill, and unlike Vespa, they stepped in this time and nerfed him about 3 days after the release, which of course caused a lot of uproar in the community, especially by the people who already invested in him. Now to see the skill itself, it's an uninterruptible AoE wide nuke, which had an ignore or still does have an ignore defense component to it, and it did a lot of damage, essentially being able to one-hit entire teams. And the Vespa nerfed the base damage of the skill by about 70%, and then provided some compensation to all players actually, including transfer tickets which you can spend to move away from his gear. Now a lot of people were upset about this, especially those I guess who have jumped on him like hot candy. My personal point of view is that nerfing isn't always bad, and like dealing with these kind of skills before they become mainstream is good. It wouldn't have been good for the health of the game if he was like an improved Scarlet Bomb character, especially being a knight who can specialize in being very tanky as well. So nerfing isn't always bad, and Vespa reacted rather fast. It's a lot better than, say, nerfing him after a year or so, what they did with Shea back then. So yeah, that's my take on it really. It sucks if you invested in him, but yeah, I guess it would be nice if Vespa could do more testing, understood their own game better, and didn't just release these kind of things into the live game, because then of course we could not have these frustrations. But I'm kind of glad that they fixed this before it became too widespread. But yeah, sorry if it hurt your own investment in him. So let's look into Shakme, what he can do, how he works, and so on. So he's a physical knight, which is too bad. I was really hoping for a magic one, who has some very interesting skills. Let's see what he can actually do. Also, he comes with a step-up summon. His basic costume doesn't look too bad, but I really like his armored one, and I feel terrible because I'm probably not gonna be able to get it. So yeah, would have been nice if it was his 5-star costume, but whatever. Let's see, skill 4, Vessel of Dark Spirit. So increases his max HP by 20%, and with the skill books this goes up to 35. Dealing damage to an enemy with a skill deals additional physical damage equal to 1% of Cell's max HP. Heals HP of all allies equal to 0.1% of Cell's max HP. Increases their magic defense by, this is like 707 for 15 seconds, and stacks Dark Spirit that lasts for 30 seconds upon self. Okay. Dark Spirit can be stacked up to maximum 30 times and is irremovable. The magic defense boost effect can be stacked up to maximum 30 times. Alright, so that's a lot of HP. That's 35% HP there. Dealing 1% of Cell's max HP additionally to the skill damage is, well, if you consider like a fully HP built Sonya, which is like 40 million health on the character sheet, so this is like give or take 400k damage extra per skill cost, and all of his skills are pretty AoE, so not a terribly high number, but we are talking about the character sheet damage here, and this can be increased with a perk as well, so it's not too bad. Actually, we have been playing with this idea if he could make something obnoxious like a Sonya type of build using the perk for this one and going super heavy on health, and then just seeing him pop out some serious numbers. Remember, this is done actually every time he deals damage with a skill, and most of his skills are actually multi-hit skills, so this will ramp up pretty fast. It's an interesting skill. The magic defense, so stacking 15 times, stacking 30 times 700, that's like 21k, which is not too bad, and there is a perk for it which also makes it physical defense as well. 20k defense in general is not bad at all, especially on your squishy DPS character, so that's quite nice, and he can maintain this indefinitely. His Dark Spirit stacks will be used by his S3 skill. But let's check his other skills then. Wind of Hatred. So this is a 2 mana cost 13-second cooldown skill that does damage in front of him. It says in a straight line, but it's kind of like a loop, like it throws his sword and it flies back to him. It does damage 5 times, and it's 5 times per target, and each hit recovers self mana by 100. So 2 mana cost, if he has like 4 targets, say arena, then this one technically doesn't cost him any mana, because he will recover 500 per target, so it's like 2 mana. You can check this actually in the story dungeon, where if you try the AoE waves, this skill will pretty much refill the mana that you spend on it. And it reaches, in arena, it reaches your backline. We have tried with like the highest range heroes we could find, and he was hitting them consistently. It doesn't hit behind him, but in front of him it does hit everything, and there are some interesting perks to go with this one too. So quite a nice skill, fairly low cooldown, low mana cost, and this will be his Dispel. Now, Gate of Grudges, this is something that you can see in his story mode. It's a 3 mana cost 20-second cooldown skill that creates a Gate of Grudges, I managed to pronounce that, in front of himself for 7 seconds, dealing a total of some damage to enemies in range. Each hit inflicts a stack of grudge that lasts for 15 seconds, and grudge can be stacked up to maximum 5 times. Each stack reduces the target's heal rate by 4%. If the target is not a hero, heal rate reduction is increased by 2 times. So the baseline skill will hit 12 times during that 7 seconds. You will be getting 12 stacks of your Dark Spirit buff. You can check that out. And also after casting, this is not constantly channeled. He just casts it and this gate comes up, and then he can keep going. And the cooldown starts ticking the moment he finishes casting. And then it's up for 7 seconds, so it disappears when your cooldown is at 13 seconds actually, and the last tick will still provide this 15-second buff. So baseline it already has a close to 100% uptime if you consider casting times in RNG, but with the perk this can be improved, and it can be made even better with his unique treasure, which is quite nice, and it provides a lot of healing reduction. I mean, if you have 5 stacks of this, which is the baseline, that's 20% heal rate reduction, but double that to 40% if it's not a hero, which is quite alright. And we will see in the unique treasures that this can be a pretty great skill both for PvE and PvP. The range of it is interesting. It was also hitting my backline as well when we were testing with Jon, and it was hitting a bit behind him as well. For instance, if I use the Ripin to jump behind Shakme, then she would be getting hit by this. If she went to, say, for Elias, who was far behind Shakme, then she wouldn't be getting hit. So it has a range. It's not a complete AoE, but it will hit pretty much your entire team unless they are far behind Shakme. Yeah, so it's quite an interesting skill. It doesn't have any CC or suck-in kind of thing attached to it, like say compared to what Kayn does, but it can have a perk which will make it do stuns. So it can be a pretty annoying skill in PvP as well. And then, of course, the controversial skill S3, Advent of Despair. So dispels negative effects from self, so this is a self cleanse, and consumes all Dark Spirit stacks, so the ones he gets from his S4. The stacks will increasing attacks, all allies attack by 10%, plus 0.5% per Dark Spirit stacks. So he can have 30 stacks on him, which will make this a 15%, so 25% attack. That's quite nice, and you get this for 15 seconds. It deals some damage. This is the part that was nerfed. Inflicts stun for 3 seconds, so this is an uninterruptible stun, and increases P damage the targets take by 20% plus 1% per Dark Spirit stack for 15 seconds. So again, with the maximum stack count, this is a 50% P damage buff, which is not a small number. The damage of this skill increases by 10% per Dark Spirit stack, so again, 10% per Dark Spirit stack. Yeah, you had it right. So with the maximum stack, that's a 300% damage increase in this skill. Oh my god. and if the target is not a hero, damage boost per stack increases by 2 times. So yeah, in Arena it doesn't increase by that much, but yeah, that's still with a maximum stack. And in AoE situations, getting that 30 stack is really easy because it's a per hit kind of thing. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Now the Dark Spirit, we need to mention here that because in a single target scenario, if you are running him in auto, he will probably not get to 30 stacks because his S1 will only give him 5 and his S2 will only give him 12, so you have 17 stacks before he will most likely use his S3, and then that's all you get. So if you are running him on auto, he will, in a single target situation, he will not be utilizing the maximum of his new capability, but then again, maybe you are using him as a tank. Yeah, so these are his skills. Quite an interesting kit, especially when we go to his Transcendence perk page and see what perks he has. So let's see S1. This one increases physical damage the hit target takes by 25% for 10 seconds. So remember, this is like a 12 second, was it 12 or 13 seconds? 13 seconds, sorry. So 13 seconds, cooldown, the uptime is 10 seconds, so almost a full uptime, it's pretty close to that. 25% is not too small, and remember, he also brings a lot of other damage increase. Now this one dispels positive effects from the target. So basically everyone he hits will have their shields and stuff dispelled. Definitely a PvP perk. It's a 2 mana skill, so you can't instant counter, say, a bow shield with it, but 2 mana isn't too hard to get. And remember that you also, you will also receive the mana back that you use on him on this skill, so that's quite nice. This is a very useful perk, especially because nowadays so many people have shields and stuff, and this hits the entire enemy team as long as they are in front of Shock. So yeah, quite a nice perk. Definitely would take this for PvP and probably this one for PvE. Let's see, his S2 reduces the cooldown by 6 seconds, so going from 20 seconds to 14, and remember that the skill itself lasts for 7 seconds, so the uptime of the grudge debuff and buff, if you check his UT, will be pretty much permanent. It's like he can just spam away the skills. Definitely a PvE skill, but yeah, definitely a PvE skill. For PvP, for the duration of Gate of Grudges, each hit inflicts stun on the target for 1 second. So remember, after this skill goes up, it stays for 7 seconds and it will do damage 12 times. So that's 12 mini stuns you will be seeing over 7 seconds, which can be an eternity in Arena. 7 seconds is like a very long time. If you do not have an immunity shield, which he can, by the way, dispel right after casting this skill, if he has enough speed and mana, then this can be quite a devastating skill. It's an AoE wide stun, similar to, like, say, Lucius's S2. So yeah, it's quite bothersome. Definitely something you would want to consider for PvP. It has a high mana cost. It's like 3 mana. But yeah, it can be the deciding factor in a game. And let's see, S3 increases damage by 40%. So yeah, on top of the UT damage, which we will look at in a moment, and the increase from the Dark Spirit stacks, he will also increase with a perk. So this was a pretty brutal nuke before they nerfed the base damage, and I think still it does a lot of damage. We have been testing and it was like killing my backliners sometimes, and it's not even an 8 to 20 shock that we were fighting, or I was fighting there. So yeah, this can still do a lot of damage, it's just not as devastating as it was before. And if you check this other perk, dispels negative effects from all allies. So if you are running more of a support Shakme, or you want to have an AoE cleanse because you don't have enough of them, then this can be also one. But remember that this is actually a 3 mana skill. Although if you take the unique treasure, then it's actually only 2. So it does not help you to counter, say, Instant Leo or Cassandra, and especially not Dark Lord Castle, because for that you kind of want a 0 mana cleanse. But it's still quite nice. It's always good to have more cleanses, and this lets him do some other PvE roles. So yeah, quite a good stuff. Let's see. Vessel of Dark Spirit changes additional damage proportional to max HP percentage to 1.5%. So the base number is 1%. and this changes up to like 1.5, which is not a small increase. It's like a 50% increase in the damage that the skill does. And remember, this is constant AoE damage which comes from him just using his skills, which all are multi-hits and will trigger this several times. So just taking the character sheet stats of a 40 million health Shakmei, that would be 600k per hit on everyone per hit. And remember, S1 hits 5 times per character, and his S2 hits 12 times. So yeah, that's a lot of damage if you look at it that way, if you add it up with the other stuff. So could be interesting to try him with like a heavy health base build, which also provides healing to the rest of your team. And on top of that, he will be able to cleanse, dispel and cleanse. So yeah, the other stuff is when there is one enemy changes heal rate proportional to max HP to 1%. So this improves his healing. The one place I can think of where this could be really good is Trial of Earth, where he brings a cleanse, which is really good. And he brings, we will check his tier 5 dark in a moment, and he brings healing to everyone, which is quite nice. This scales off of his HP and could be quite alright. Not a terribly big number, but it's a constant healing that could keep your stuff alive. So yeah, not quite sure of the usefulness of this one, but it could be good in certain situations. And then there is his tier 5 dark, increases the attack of one ally with the highest attack by 0.1% of own max HP and takes 20% of all damage dealt to the target instead. This effect is irremovable, and when Shakmei takes damage of the ally instead, the damage is reduced by 50%. The attack boost rate is reduced to half in the arena. Now the attack boost is kind of weird, because if you consider 0.1% even of a 40 million health Shakmei, that's 40k, which is not a terribly big number nowadays. It's not bad, but it's kind of weird, I think. And in PvE you probably wouldn't run a full HP based Shakmei, because you kind of want to have more block and stuff. But yeah, of course we are still only counting character sheet stuff here, and of course with all the bonuses that would be quite a bit more. Now the other stuff is like Ricardo, so 20% of the damage dealt is transferred to Shakmei instead, so makes your main DPS or your highest attacker a lot tankier, and he only takes half of that damage, so essentially 10% of the actual damage that happened. And the attack boost rate is reduced to half in arena, so you will only get 0.05% of his health as attack, which is still not quite bad. And then here is his tier 5 light. As you can expect, he gets HP and HP. Well, the first HP is of course given. So that's his perks. Definitely the cleanse and dispel are interesting. If you want him to be a nuker, then you can take this. If you want him to amp more in PvE, then these two perks are nice. There are options for both, and like an attack based nuker, who like a Scarlet Bomb with ignore defense still. I think when fully built is still gonna do a lot of damage. Or you can go for more like a Sonya kind of lockdown with this one, and also dealing damage based on his HP. So different build types here that you can play around with. I'm kind of looking forward to how this gonna work out in the end. But let's see his unique gears, because that's also important. Let's start with his unique weapon, which thanks to the composition we can have a 1-star of already. So dealing damage to an enemy with a normal attack heals own HP equal to 0.5% of max HP, and grants an irremovable stack of Demon Beast. Demon Beast can be stacked up to 10 times. At maximum stack, increases physical damage all enemies take by 24% for 15 seconds. And then you enter into this Demon Beast of Darkness form, increasing your own attack speed and heal rate. And during the Demon Beast state, you will not be gaining stacks, and all allies receive half of the attack speed and the heal rate boost effects gained by Shakmei. So that's quite interesting. It increases attack speed and heal rate for all your allies. And as the skill goes up, you can see that the the healing itself doesn't go up, but the physical damage goes all the way to 15%. So this is a 15% buff which he just gets from doing normal attacks, and he will get 300 speed and 30% heal rate, so he will give half of that to his team. So 150 attack and 15% heal rate. That can be quite nice to use for him, say in Eclipse maybe, or on Galgoria possibly. Yeah, not a bad perk for his unique weapon, and of course it will improve his damage on stuff like his S3. Moving on to the unique treasures, so Gate of Grudges, this is his S2, which I picked up from the free ticket. Changes the max number of stacks for Grudge to 6 times. So on base, this is improving it by 1. And Grudge stacks additionally increase physical damage taken by 3%. So more amp. And if you check this one out, this means that it will go up all the way to 12 stacks, which you get from a single cast. And that will give you 36% of physical damage increase, which you can keep up indefinitely if you also take the perk, and you will also do in PvE unless well, I think it was 88% healing reduction, not quite moral level but quite close to it. So, or was it 12? Yeah, something like that, whatever. It's a lot of healing reduction, don't mind me on my math. Alright, so the other one, Wind of Hatred, so this is his S1, reduces mana cost by 1 and all block chance of the target by 204 seconds. So this one makes his Dispel be a 1 mana cost, which is quite interesting. It could be pretty good for PvP if you quickly need to counter, say, a bow or an instant shield Loman or something like that, because remember this skill dispels, and it provides block reduction at the maximum. That's a 500, which is not quite a lot in the fights where it matters like in Trial of Earth or on Siegfried. 500 is not quite enough, so this seems to be more of a PvP kind of thing. Yeah, so but for a very quick dispel, this could be quite useful. And then if we go to the index and look at his other 2 unique treasures, let's just check it there. So unique treasure, Knight, and let me see. So this was his unique treasure 3. So as you can see, it gives a 50% bonus to the S3 damage, which is still a pretty strong nuke, and ignores the target's defense. So this makes his S3 an ignore defense nuke, and if you max it out, it gets a 50% damage increase. So not as powerful as it was before, but still quite potent. It does do a lot of damage, except if you are like a more bruiser type of character. So yeah, and remember, this is also a self-cleanse skill, so it can be interrupted, much the same as Scarlet cannot be interrupted during her S2. And his other skill, or UT, his UT4, increases CC resist by up to 750 and changes magic defense boost effect to all defense boosts. So the stacking buff that he gives to his team can be against physical defense too, but you need to hit with skills for this to stack. So yeah, it's like whatever. Increases CC resist by 750. Now this is kind of interesting. I'm not sure I would really take this one for PvP, because as long as you can cleanse him before he gets his S2 off, it's really not that of a big deal. And CC resist with there being debuff ACC and all sorts of skills, and mana burn, especially from like Dark Lord Castle, is just not that useful these days. So I would probably not pick this one, other than for maybe the extra defense boost for where you need it, maybe on like say if you want to have it on, say, Trial of Earth, or maybe not Galgoria, because that's magic damage. Siegfried maybe, there he might be good because block reduction and a lot of amp, so maybe there. But yeah, other than that, I think his UT2 will be the PvE one, and for PvP you can decide whether you want a lower mana on his UT on his S1, or you want to nuke more with his S2 perhaps. So those are kind of the options. Now I do not have his soul weapon, so I cannot show that to you, but let's just read it out. Charges up over 20 seconds, summons the soul of encroaching darkness, Leifende, for 10 seconds, dealing physical damage equal to 5% of his own max HP to frontal enemies in range every 3 seconds. So let's say this ticks 3 times during 10 seconds, that's 15% of his health. That's quite a big number, especially if you consider that it's added together with all the other damage he does. And if you have like a health-based Shakme in arena, this can be pretty devastating. 20 seconds is a long charge up time, but at A2 this is reduced to 15 seconds. On top of this, each hit increases physical damage the target takes by 30% for 5 seconds, increases damage dealt to enemies of Shakme and the ally with the highest attack excluding self by 10% for the duration of the soul. So this is kind of weird because it kind of suggests that your own character will also be taking 10% extra damage. I wonder if this is a wording issue. Rather hard to test, and we weren't able to quite figure this out. So it could be that actually your highest attacker will also be taking more damage. If that's how I understand it, and if that's correct. But yeah, everyone else will be taking 10% extra damage. Let's see, Advancement Phase 1, for the duration of the soul, recovers mana by 400 every second, so that gives him 4 mana bars, which is quite a lot. And then it's more than enough to cast his S2 right together with this with the soul weapon. And then Advancement 2 changes the first skill activation requirements to 15 seconds and damage boost against enemies to 20%. So it seems that your highest attacker might still be taking 10%, but everyone else will be taking 20% extra damage. And the cooldown is 16 seconds, has 6 uses. So yeah, 10 seconds uptime, 20 seconds or 15 seconds charging time, and 16 seconds cooldown. It has a pretty good uptime, I think, and a lot of damage bonus, both in terms of amp and in like added extra damage layer. And yeah, this could be a pretty big nuke in arena if you have like a more if you have like a build Shakme for that. So yeah, interesting. And I think with that we have pretty much got to the end of his skills and everything. Now, where would he be useful? I would say he can replace Loman in certain contents. Now, he doesn't make your team as tanky against magic damage as Loman does, and his amp is a bit less reliable because he cannot stack his Dark Spirit stacks on auto mode at least. So in some fights he may not be better than Loman, but then in other fights he probably is. Galgoria, I was told that people really feel the lack of magic defense from Loman, especially in the higher stages, but he can do the job there, especially because he can bring an extra team-wide cleanse, which is nice there. Siegfried, Trial of Earth, though maybe Eclipse could be good. Yeah, those are the first thing that come to mind. He doesn't have any attack reduction, so certain fights where that's really important he will be lacking. And in arena he seems like quite a beast, to be honest, with a lot of perks to him, including cleanse, dispel, AoE stuns, burst damage, defense to your characters, taking over damage from your highest attacker. So he could be a really interesting character. And just to have a quick look at it, I'm gonna check in the shop the poor thing that I will probably not have. So if you have look at the costume, I think this looks really awesome. It looks like actual armor with the shoulder plates and the helm, and this looks pretty cool behind him. And I really do wish that this wasn't locked behind the 45k ruby spend wall, which would be kinda nice. But yeah, it's what it is. So yeah, this was my take on Shakme. I think he is a pretty interesting character. I'm kinda glad that he wasn't made broken OP, but I believe he's still quite strong both in PvE and in PvP. And remember, he can to some extent replace Loman, who is an NPC, which means he requires a lot, or Lohman would require a lot more investment, so not quite a bad trade there if you ask me. Probably the best physical tank you can have, not counting Lohman. So that's why I'm also a bit salty, because Magic would have needed a tank like Lohman, but at least in PvE. For PvP we kinda have Dosarta who works. But okay guys, this has become a very long video. Thank you for watching. This has been Cloudy for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.